If you want to get a man to build a boat, you can teach him to saw planks of wood and hammer nails, or you can teach him to dream of the ocean. The first way will get the job done, the boat will get built, but it might never leave the shore. But the person who dreams of the ocean, who yearns for the open seas, will find a way to get the skills and get the tools and get the equipment to build the boat, and then they will launch out into the deep and sail toward the horizon. What about how do you get a person to be morally good and devoted to God? Well, in the New Testament, we hear two different ways. And the Pharisees' way is like the hammering in the nails. The Pharisees and the religious establishment had very precise ways of following God, 600 plus commandments which were given in incredible detail of what to eat, what not to eat, what not to touch, when to worship God, when to who you could sit next to, what you could wear, what you couldn't wear. Incredible level of detail to kind of keep people on the straight and narrow. And that, to at least some extent, works. But far better is Jesus' approach, because Jesus teaches us to dream of the ocean. And the ocean, Jesus proposes, is the ocean of an infinite God who loves us so much, who is so overflowing with mercy that we will just want to be drawn towards him and will find the way to do whatever it takes to be close to him, to love him and to follow and obey him. This is what Jesus is doing when he gives us the beautiful parable today of the Prodigal Son. This is Jesus' longest parable. It may be his most popular, most famous one too, but certainly his longest, most extensive parable. Jesus could have given the short version to us and said, a man forgave his younger son and his older son got jealous. The end. But Jesus gives us so much more than that. Jesus paints a much more detailed portrait so we get to understand the two sons, but also the father, because it's actually the father who is the star of this parable. Although we tend to call it the prodigal son, there are no headings in the Bible. This is never the official title. This is actually a story about a father who goes out to his lost son, who when the son comes back to apologize, bedraggled, humbled, diminished, runs out and wraps his arms around him and reinstates him and restores him back to sonship, a sonship which he had forfeited the right to, but his father lovingly gives back to him out of love. In the same way, the father goes out of the party to the grumbling older brother, to the older one who seemingly is good and virtuous, but in fact has a really hard heart. It'd be so easy for the father to say, well, leave him. If he wants to sulk out there, he can. But no, the father goes out towards that son too. And so whether we are the younger son who is humbled and humiliated by our own sin, by our own failures in life, or whether we are the proud, cocky older son who feels like, oh, we've done everything right and we can judge others, whichever we are, God comes to us with his mercy, with his love that wants to pierce through our darkness and pierce through our defenses and embrace us in love. This is Jesus' way of inviting our response to be both morally good in response to the love God gives us and to be devoted to God, to be connected in relationship with him, to know that we are his beloved children, not just his servants and subjects. I think what Jesus does in this parable, but in really all of his teaching, all of his proclamation of the good news of the kingdom of God, is to reframe the question. A question which used to be asked as, but unfortunately still is by many people, asked as, how good do I have to be? What's the minimum standard I need to achieve in terms of moral goodness or enough prayers or enough devotion to go to heaven or not go to hell or not be punished, however we might frame that question. That's the question the Pharisees asked. That's the sawing planks of wood and hammering in nails kind of question. But Jesus changes the question for us to be, how good can I be? If we accept that we are already loved by God and that Jesus' sacrifice on the cross has already won our salvation, that we can't add to that. Instead, we rather than saying, what's the minimum I have to get up to, we say, how high can I soar? How far can I sail? How deep in God's love can I go? Can I be a saint? How can I not want to be a saint? How can I not want to give everything I am and all that I have to a God who loves me so much? That is our invitation we hear in the gospel today. To be, whether we are the prodigal or we are the older brother, we are loved so deeply by that God. the God whom Jesus gives us intimate portrait of. So let's be swept away by his love, invited into his mercy. Perhaps for you, approaching the sacrament of reconciliation this coming week might be your way of appropriating entering God's mercy. And all the details of when we're having reconciliation this week are in our parish bulletin and on our website. But I invite you to be swept away by God's mercy and love and ask that question, how good can I be?